Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, and buonasera, Laziali around the world. Thank you for joining. I am Shawn McIntosh here with the Biancocelesti broadcast. We are recording shortly after the Champions League draw. I think coming off of a little bit of a high, after what was a low a couple days ago with our matchup against Atalanta. But I think Laziali around the world are pretty content with being paired up in a group that sees us facing Borussia Dortmund, Zenit, and Club Brugge. Feeling pretty good about our chances to come out of it. But the big talking news today is there has been sightings of Mr. Andreas Pereira landing in Rome today, sure to be putting pen to paper, finalizing that big deal. We wanted to bring on a special guest here. We are joined by Kaustubh, who has been featured by Manchester United News and FootballItalia, a calcio mercato expert. You've seen him online, does a lot of great work. Kaustubh, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Shawn. Thanks a lot.
So, mentioned it. We've seen Pereira land today in Rome. Certainly getting them into the roster. There's a lot of mixed reviews that I've seen from United loyalists online. I think the biggest question right off the bat, before we get into specifics on style of play and where we see him fitted in, I think what Laziali around the world want to know is, can this guy play? And is there any real quality? Because, we've seen the figures, and right now it's a loan with an option to buy. Pretty lofty number, if we were to go down that route of purchasing him. So, again, mixed reviews. Give us your professional assessment. Can this guy play?
Yeah, I mean, there was this period in the middle of last season where I actually tweeted something that Andreas Pereira is probably best for Serie A or La Liga. I mean, and I think this was around December or somewhere when United were playing Sheffield United, and actually Pereira was getting outclassed in a physical manner in midfield, and he was taking, let's say, too many touches of the ball. He was taking too much time. United possession of the ball, he was getting overpowered in a sense. So I remember tweeting that he's best for Serie A, and he's probably not going to make the cut in the Premier League. But statistically, Andreas Pereira was Man United's best chance creator before Bruno Fernandes came in. So in that sense, it just shows that, I mean, there was a lot of expectations on his head because he is a United youth product, a United boy since he was a child, but he didn't quite develop as United would have wanted, even though he spent loan spells in Spain at Granada and Valencia. It didn't quite work out at United. But yeah, I thought a lot of times he didn't quite seem a player meant for the Premier League. Like, he took a lot of time on the ball when he shouldn't have taken so much time on the ball. He should release passes much more quicker. So Serie A is one league where the players or central midfielders or attacking midfielders can take a lot more time on the ball than they can take in the Premier League. So I think Pereira is someone who's Serie A in that regard. But yeah, it's not like he's at the level of someone like Luis Alberto, but comparisons can be made when Luis Alberto left Liverpool because the reasons were pretty similar, as in he took too many touches on the ball, the Premier League was too quick for him and stuff. So I think Pereira is someone who was often ridiculed by a lot of United fans, and largely because he didn't quite meet the United standards, which can be pretty lofty. And the fans on social media are pretty much toxic, especially United fans, I must say, that they want to be the best in the Premier League when they clearly aren't these days. They wanted him to maybe perform at the level of someone like Kevin De Bruyne, which is a pretty unwanted expectation from someone like Andreas Pereira. But there were times when he went, he was constantly bickering on social media against United fans that were constantly against him, that never really helped his reputation. But his bickering, I think, had a positive spin to it. Because I remember scrolling through Facebook one day and I came across Pereira's post on Twitter right before the United game. And there were people who were saying him that get out of United and stuff, which is pretty rude on some fans. But this guy, one good thing that he has, he constantly replied to these fans and he constantly said that, "Don't worry, I'll make the grade at United." So in that sense, it's a bit sad that he's leaving on these terms. But yeah, there's a pretty good player in there and a player who can thrive in Serie A, as I tweeted in December.
Yeah, and you mentioned the likes of Luis Alberto. Obviously, there's some similarities there. Lazio, certainly from a starting 11 standpoint, one of the stronger starting 11s in Serie A. Typically, what's looked at as one of the better midfields in the league. Where do you see him sliding in and finding himself? Obviously, we're investing in this guy. He's got to find playing time. Where do you see that happening?
I think he's not quite a player like Milinkovic-Savic, because I think for me, Milinkovic-Savic is probably one of the most complete central midfielders in Europe, in the sense that he can do just about everything that his team wants. Pereira is someone who can either play in the Lucas Leiva role, because, as I said, he likes to take a lot of time on the ball sometimes, or either he's a lot like Luis Alberto, because originally his position was the attacking midfield, but over time it sort of changed. Like, as he started being used in a lot of different positions. He is often played on the left as well, which he's not quite quick enough for. But yeah, as I said, it's Lazio player 3-5-2. I think he's not got as much work rate as Milinkovic-Savic. He can't cover both the boxes, especially on a consistent basis. So I think it's best for him to either play as the register role, as we call in Serie A, or in the Luis Alberto role, because I saw last season that Lazio were sometimes lacking this connecting point from midfield to attack when Luis Alberto was out towards the end of last year. So I think he can be the sort of player who acts as that connecting point of midfield to the likes of Caicedo and Immobile. I think that's the sort of role I'm looking at. But yeah, he's pretty versatile enough to play in the other two midfield positions as well.
And so you talked a little bit about his weaknesses, particularly, just physicality in the Premier League. I think that's probably something that's going to be a little bit tougher for him to improve on. But, where do you see him needing to improve outside of physicality, especially to succeed in Serie A? Where do you think he needs to really focus on to become the type of player, people lauded him or expected him to be?
Yeah.
What does he need to really focus on?
I think, as I just said, I think he's been used in a wide position as well by United. That usually in games, in the Europa League, we've got dead rubber games where we're about 5-0 up or 6-0 up, but he comes on the last 15-20 minutes. It's just because he's not quite quick enough on the ball, at least not to play in let's say, in the Correa role for Lazio. But another thing where he can probably improve on is his output, because we've seen, it was pretty funny to see that United fans, funnily enough, said that he thinks he's a lot like Ronaldinho, when he's not quite Ronaldinho. Of course, you can't be Ronaldinho, in the sense that he tries to do a lot of things whenever he gets inside the box, which he shouldn't do. Like, he'll probably try to do some sort of trick or an unwanted piece of trickery or something, when he should probably just take a shot on goal and just pass it to the nearest teammate, or just create a chance. So it's one thing that hasn't quite developed in him yet, because that can be down to United themselves for how less they used him, or how Valencia also used him in too many different positions. And spoke about the third one, that he often takes too many touches in the ball. There are times when he can release the ball a bit quicker than he usually should. Like, you can see him getting tangled in himself sometimes. Like, if teams are pressing him, he can't quite make the right sort of decision, whether he needs to shield the ball or whether he needs to play someone else in, or maybe dribble past an opposition player. So I think there are areas that he needs to improve on, but I think Lazio is the sort of place where he can do that.
Yeah, and look, Inzaghi, we know, likes to play a pretty quick tempo game. There's a lot of touches between those midfielders and attacking support. Certainly a player like Caicedo, who, when he comes in, he provides a little bit more link-up play. between Immobile and Luis Alberto. And so, that is definitely if that's an area of concern, that's going to be something that Inzaghi is going to demand from him, is that quicker decision making. I guess the positive is that, we saw that improvement with the likes of Luis Alberto. That Inzaghi can obviously work with him, as a former striker, kind of molding him a little bit in the things that he needs to see as a former striker, and what he needs from his midfielders. So, we talked a little bit about, obviously being played maybe in the wrong position, but, if you could give me, one big reason for his failure at United, what would that one big reason be?
I think there have been a lot of players over the years at United who have been treated a bit unfairly, in the sense that we had players like Adnan Januzaj. You might have heard of him. Like, there was this season where he came on to the scene in a flash, where we were having a pretty poor season after Sir Alex Ferguson retired. He was pretty good in that season, and then we had a managerial change. David Moyes left for Louis van Gaal, and then there was this transfer window where we signed a lot of different players, which didn't quite work out for a lot of them. So I think for Pereira, a case can be made of a similar thing, in the sense that when United loaned him out, they probably had plans for bringing him back from Valencia and probably giving first team football. Louis van Gaal, who was a manager before Jose Mourinho, he, I think, saw something in him, because he used to play him in cup games a lot of times, and he scored some pretty decent free kicks as well. So I thought Louis van Gaal probably saw a future at him at United, but then Van Gaal went and Mourinho came in. So I think a lot of it is down to the instability that United have had as well, because you can't quite expect a player to perform at his best if you've got about 3 or 4 different managers in space of about 5, 6, 7 years. And Pereira was someone who I think suffered from that. If let's say United never signed Paul Pogba, I mean, of course, that's a pretty hypothetical scenario. If Man United never signed Fred from Shakhtar Donetsk, I think Pereira could have made a lot more impact than he actually made, and he could have had more first team football, could have played in the right position for himself. And I think a lot of it is also down to, let's say, expectations, because United fans are pretty vocal about how they want to challenge for the title, and they want to win the Champions League, and they want to win every trophy in the land. But it hasn't quite been the case after Sir Alex Ferguson went, as I said, largely because of the instability at the club and all the ownership issues and the managerial issues that we had. So yeah, I mean, people have often expected United attacking midfielders to be at the level of someone like, let's say, Wayne Rooney, so that United win every trophy in the land. But I think Pereira was unfairly judged on those grounds, and a lot of it then really went down when he started quarreling with United fans online, and he wasn't used enough. And when he was played, he didn't quite have the confidence to succeed, or maybe wasn't the right sort of profile that United wanted. Yeah, it's a mixture of reasons, which can be down to him and can be down to the club as well.
Yeah, two things that I heard or that resonated the most with me. I immediately reached out to friends of mine that support United, obviously with questions about the player. And 2 things that really stuck out. One was, he's a player with passion, a player that has a ton of emotion. Really exhibited from you giving us that insight about how he kind of interacts with the fans online. Which I think are big for a club like Lazio. Certainly a manager like Simone Inzaghi wants those players that play with a ton of passion and heart and energy. The second is that, he's a player that probably needs to have that manager that builds his confidence up and that really has that special relationship. So again, I see Inzaghi as that perfect type of coach, somebody that has been able to get the most out of a Ciro Immobile who, went abroad and struggled, for whatever reasons, was able to kind of bring him in, nurture the player, really a player's type of coach. And so, I hope to be able to obviously get the most out of him with a manager like Simone Inzaghi. Last thing I'll ask you, Kaus, is what should Laziali be feeling? With this signing, put yourself in our shoes. We are a team that obviously is playing in Champions League this year. Our biggest challenge last year as a club was obviously we had these big hopes pre-COVID of actually winning a Scudetto that saw us right up there. Obviously, post-COVID, things took a turn for the worst, really hampered by lack of depth, lack of quality off of the bench. And so now that we're competing on two fronts, needing quality, Pereira, alongside the likes of Murici, who we've signed, probably our two biggest acquisitions. How should Laziali be feeling about this one?
I think it would be fair to expect that he's not going to start every game. And if he starts every game, he's probably not going to be, let's say, as exceptional as Luis Alberto Milinkovic-Savic, because simply he's not at that level yet. He's someone who deserves a bit of time to maybe get away from that mental stuff that happened at United, especially towards the end, because I was told that in around January or December, he was pretty keen to stay and make a mark at United and break into the first team. It didn't quite work out. So I think he needs to get away from that mental state where he thinks that he's not good enough and stuff like that, because it's a new beginning for him where things will suit him a lot more than they did in the Premier League, and he just needs a bit of time, and because he's obviously suffered a lot from improper expectations at United. But we've seen it before. At Valencia, he was pretty good. I mean, he didn't quite contribute to too many goals and assists, so it'll be unfair to say that he's going to contribute to maybe 15, 20 goals a season. He's not going to do that. He will create a lot of chances, but there'll be places where you'll probably be a bit frustrated. But yeah, he's just 23, 24. It's probably his first big chance of, apart from United, first big chance of making sure that he really makes an impact and he proves people wrong. So the key in this case should be to help him just feel at home in Rome, in the sense that he really needs that sort of treatment where he's loved by fans. He clearly wasn't at United. Him and Jesse Lingard were probably one of the most, let's say, criticized players in the Premier League, to be kind. So yeah, I think you just need to give him time and be patient with him, and I think the 27 million euros option to buy does seem a bit hefty at this point. But as I said, he just needs the time and the patience to just kick on once again and just prove people wrong, because time is what you need to do that. So yeah, I think you can expect good things, but you just have to wait maybe.
No, that's a good assessment. Obviously we're all hoping that this works out, and if at the end of his spell on loan we see a purchase, I think that just indicates everything went extraordinarily well for the player and for club. So I would certainly be happy to shell out 27 million, because again, if we do so, especially with an owner like Lotito, who quite often doesn't, it means things went right for both player and club. So Kaus, really appreciate you jumping on and giving Laziali a little bit of an insight for the player that is soon to become a Laziale. Tell the people where they can find you on social media.
I'm on Twitter at post_Pandey17. And yeah, you can find my work right there. I mean, I post a lot of stuff there. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us. And best of luck to United in Champions League and with the Prem.
Thanks a lot, Shawn. All the best to Lazio and Pereira as well.